The Galactic Empire had stood for 10,000 years, spreading its rule across the stars like a burning crown. Its fleets were vast, its armies endless, and its rulers arrogant beyond reason. In their great halls of crystal and gold, the nobles spoke of order, of civilization, and of their right to rule all things that breathed. They had conquered thousands of worlds and crushed hundreds of rebellions. To them, every other species was only dust beneath their boots. But one day, their endless scanners found a small blue world orbiting a quiet yellow star, a world called Earth. At first it meant nothing to them, just another backwater planet filled with noise and primitive life. The Empire's survey teams recorded it as unclassified, and their commanders barely paid attention. But one man did, Admiral Varan Thulek of the 9th Imperial Fleet. A man known for his pride and cruelty, Varan had fought more wars than most could count. He believed fear was the only truth of power. To him, this small human planet was a chance to remind the galaxy why the Empire ruled. His advisors told him it was not necessary, that the humans were no threat. But Varan only laughed. No threat, he said, his golden armor shining under the command deck lights. Then let us make an example of them, so he gave the order. From his massive flagship Dominion's Wrath, the fleet turned toward the Sol system. Thousands of ships filled the void, their engines burning bright like fireflies of death. They entered the system quietly, cutting through the silence of the stars. The humans had no warning, no clue that death had come for them near Mars. A human research station floated peacefully. Scientists inside studied asteroid samples, sending small transmissions back to Earth. They were civilians, not soldiers, not warriors. They never saw the Imperial fleet arrive, nor did they understand when the sky outside their windows turned white. Admiral Varan smiled as the first shot was fired. The Dominion's Wrath unleashed its main cannon. A beam of energy ripped through the station like paper. It exploded silently, turning metal, air, and dreams into drifting ash. The crew didn't even have time to scream. The fleet recorded the destruction. Cold and precise, Varan watched the debris scatter, his lips curling into a cruel grin. Send the message, he said. His communications officer nodded. A signal was sent to Earth, a message written in the Empire's cold language. Submit or be erased. But something happened that the Admiral didn't expect. His message didn't bring fear. It brought silence. The kind of silence that isn't surrender but warning. Across Earth, the message spread like wildfire. It appeared on screens in cities and colonies, on stations orbiting distant moons. People stopped working, talking, breathing. They stared at the message, then at the burning image of their destroyed station. In the command room of Luna Base, Commander Elias Arlen stood frozen before the display. His hands clenched into fists around him. Officers whispered in disbelief. One young soldier said softly, "They killed scientists, not soldiers." Elias turned toward her, his voice quiet but sharp. And that was their mistake. He walked to the main console and opened a locked channel, a protocol so old it was nearly forgotten. It required codes that hadn't been used in 100 years. The screen flickered red, displaying a name the galaxy hadn't heard since the last war. Project Revenant. Authorized alarms echoed through the base, deep under Earth's crust. In hidden hangars beneath the oceans and the dark side of the moon, machines began to awaken. Old warships, their hulls coated in black alloy, their systems still alive but sleeping, stirred like beasts in a long winter. Activate the Dark Fleet, Elias said, his voice steady. Bring them home. On Mars Colony 3, the survivors of the Empire's first attack gathered what little they could. Engineers, miners, and soldiers began repairing old defense satellites. They didn't have enough weapons, but they had something the Empire could never understand. Unity. The Empire had seen humans as divided, weak, chaotic, but they didn't know that humanity had one rule when threatened. A rule carved into every heart since the first fire was lit on Earth. Never again. Messages began to flow across the colonies, across every station and outpost. Pilots returned to duty. Shipyards came alive. And AI cores once thought abandoned reconnected to the human network. It was as if the entire species had taken a deep breath, waiting for one heartbeat before the storm. Admiral Varan sat in his throne-like chair aboard the Dominion's Wrath, watching Earth through the viewport. No response, he said with a smirk. They are nothing but animals, but in that very moment, far below him, in the deep core of Earth's defense grid, the first human warship powered up. Its engines roared like thunder beneath the crust, shaking the ground miles above. The ship's name burned onto its hull, HSS Vengeance, and as the stars flickered outside, a signal left Earth, traveling faster than light through every colony, every world, every hidden base. It carried one word, one command, one promise. Retaliate. Admiral Varan didn't know it yet, but the Empire's age of arrogance had just ended. The humans were coming, not to talk, not to kneel, but to burn. The message spread like lightning through the void. Retaliate. That one word traveled across colonies, space stations, and deep space networks faster than any command ever had before. Every human who read it felt the same burning pulse inside. A fire that started from grief and turned into fury. On Luna Base, Commander Elias Arlen stood before a massive hollow table, showing a map of the Sol system. Around him stood generals, scientists, and AI holograms flickering with cold light. His voice was calm, but his eyes carried storms. "The Empire thinks we are weak," he said slowly. "They think we have forgotten how to fight. Let's remind them." The hologram shifted, revealing dozens of ship blueprints long thought lost to time. The Titan-class dreadnoughts, the Revenant cruisers, and the Silent Wing stealth fleet, all part of Project Revenant, a secret program built during the old Earth Wars meant for a war that never came. Humanity had hidden its sharpest claws beneath layers of peace, waiting, far below the surface of the moon. Hangar doors that had not opened in a century began to move. Dust and silence fell away as massive black ships rose from the dark, each one powered by reactors older than most colonies, but still alive, still hungry. Engineers watched in awe as engines the size of cities roared back to life. "I never thought I'd see this day," whispered one technician, tears in her eyes at the same time. Mars base came alive. Mining ships were stripped down and rebuilt into carriers and gun platforms. Civilian transporters became troop ships. Weapons from old wars were reactivated. Humanity was no longer one planet, it was a network, a living organism preparing to strike in orbit above Earth. The HSS Vengeance completed its systems test. Its AI, codenamed Erebus, came online with a low, rumbling voice. "System integrity, 98%, crew status, armed and ready." The captain, Mira Solon, a veteran from the Titan Frontier Wars, stepped forward, her eyes sharp. "We don't wait for orders," she said. "We are the order." From her command chair, she watched the first fleet formation appear on her hollow screen. The ships rose from behind the moon like black shadows against the light of the sun. Dreadnoughts, carriers, interceptors, each with one purpose: to make the Empire remember the name of Earth. Meanwhile, on the edge of the solar system, human listening stations picked up faint signals. The Empire was sending another fleet, larger this time. Confident after their victory, they had no idea what was waiting for them. Commander Elias Arlen sent encrypted orders across the system. "Initiate Ghost Protocol," he said. "Let them come. And let them see nothing." Instantly, every human ship went dark. Communications silent, transponders dead, heat signatures masked by new stealth tech. The Sol system became a graveyard of shadows. Nothing moved, nothing spoke. It was as if humanity had vanished. The Empire's scouts arrived 3 days later. Scanning empty space, confused, their instruments showed no sign of life. "Maybe they fled," one alien officer said. "They're not warriors. They're prey." The Imperial captain smiled. "Then we hunt them." But deep beneath the black sea of Earth, 1,000 eyes were watching. Human AIs tracked every movement, calculating, analyzing, waiting for the perfect strike. In command centers hidden under ice, human scientists whispered prayers while their machines plotted vengeance. In the silence of orbit, Captain Mira Solon stood beside the viewing window. Earth below her glowed soft and blue. She placed her hand on the glass, whispering, "They think we're gone." "Let them believe it," behind her, Erebus spoke. "Enemy fleet will enter range in 48 hours. Shall we engage?" Mira smiled. "Not yet. We wait until they think they've already won." Across the colonies, soldiers trained under artificial suns, civilians volunteered in thousands. Every worker became a builder. Every builder became a fighter. In the black, old heroes returned, pilots, tacticians, even AIs who had been sealed away after the last war. Humanity wasn't preparing for defense anymore. They were preparing for war. And as the Empire's fleet approached the inner planets, the universe itself seemed to hold its breath. From far beyond Neptune's orbit, sensors blinked red, alerting command. Elias looked up from his console and said quietly, "They're here." At that moment, the hidden human fleet began to move, not with fear, but with purpose. Their engines lit faint blue in the dark, silent but unstoppable. Every ship bore the same emblem on its hull, an ancient Earth insignia surrounded by 3 words burned into metal. We remember Mars. The Empire's mistake had awakened something far greater than an army. It had awakened unity, wrath, and a promise forged in pain in the darkness of space. The humans waited, unseen and patient like predators beneath still water. The echo of their silence spread through the void, cold and endless. And when the first Imperial ship crossed the boundary of Earth's defense grid, the void answered, not with words, but with fire. The stars above Earth were calm, silent and beautiful, but beneath that silence, something ancient stirred. The humans had waited long enough. The Empire's second fleet had arrived, shimmering across the void like a river of steel and arrogance. Thousands of ships, each one glowing with golden engines and banners of the Imperial crest. They came with confidence, with laughter, believing that this time they would erase the humans completely. At the center of the Imperial fleet stood the flagship Sovereign Light, a floating fortress commanded by Admiral Varan himself. He watched the blue planet grow larger in the viewport, his expression sharp and cold. "End it quickly," he said. "No survivors this time." His officers obeyed, charging their plasma cannons and preparing orbital strikes. But far below them, hidden in the shadow of the moon, the human fleet waited, every system silent, every gun charged. The ships floated in darkness, no signals, no lights, nothing to reveal their position. Only the faint hum of reactors pulsed through the void like the heartbeat of a sleeping beast. Inside the HSS Vengeance, Captain Mira Solon stood before her crew. "This is not a war of conquest," she said, her voice steady and sharp. "This is justice. They struck first. They burned our people. They thought we would hide. Now they'll learn who we are." Her crew nodded, their faces calm but their eyes burning. The AI Erebus spoke quietly. "Enemy fleet within firing range in 30 seconds, orders, Captain." Mira smiled. "Wake them up." At that command, the Black Fleet came alive. Engines flared like dying stars. Weapons charged with a soundless roar. In an instant, the darkness of space lit up with red and silver light. The first human salvo launched. Thousands of kinetic slugs, plasma torpedoes, and railgun bursts, traveling at near light speed toward the unsuspecting Imperial Armada. The Empire's fleet never saw it coming. The first dreadnought was hit mid-transmission. Its hull ripped apart in silence, a wall of fire spread through its decks. And then it was gone. Another ship turned too late, its shields collapsing under a storm of tungsten rounds. Within seconds, hundreds of Imperial ships exploded, their wreckage drifting like shattered glass. Admiral Varan rose from his chair, eyes wide. What is this?" he shouted. "Where did they come from?" His sensors officers screamed. Multiple contacts, hundreds of them, emerging from lunar shadow and asteroid belts. The Admiral's voice turned from fury to disbelief. "Impossible. They have no right to this kind of power, but they did." And it was only the beginning. From behind Mars, another wave of human ships appeared. These were smaller, faster, darting through the battlefield like ghosts. They struck the Empire's communications relays, silencing their command network. Then came the orbital platforms, old relics reprogrammed into automated cannons, firing beams of pure fusion energy. The void itself seemed to ignite. Commander Elias Arlen watched the live feed from Luna Base. His face was lit by the fire of battle. "They wanted war," he said quietly. "Now they have it." Around him, officers shouted reports. "Enemy formations collapsing, sir. They're retreating toward Jupiter." Elias gave one nod. "No, they're running. Back on the Sovereign Light." Chaos ruled. Alarms screamed through the decks. Fire tore across corridors and officers shouted over one another. Admiral Varan stared at the burning battlefield, his pride collapsing under the weight of horror. "How?" he whispered. "They were supposed to be primitive." In that moment, a shadow fell across his ship. The HSS Vengeance emerged from the dark like a leviathan, its black hull glowing red from the heat of battle. Every gun turret turned toward the Imperial flagship. Admiral Varan's heart froze as he heard a voice through his comms. "This is Captain Mira Solon of Earth's Fleet Command," she said, calm and deadly. "You fired first, Admiral. This is your answer." The next instant, the Vengeance fired its main cannon. A single beam of plasma cut through the void, striking the Sovereign Light head-on. The explosion lit up half the system. For a moment, even the stars seemed to flicker. Silence followed. Only the crackle of damaged comms and drifting debris filled the void. One by one, the remaining Imperial ships powered down their weapons. Some tried to flee, others surrendered in panic. But there was nowhere to run. The humans had surrounded them completely. In the control room of Luna Base, the crew cheered, tears in their eyes. Humanity had done the impossible. They had stood against the greatest empire in the galaxy and won the first battle. Elias Arlen didn't smile. His voice was soft but firm. "This isn't victory," he said. "It's the beginning." As the burning remains of the Imperial fleet drifted through space, human ships began collecting survivors not out of mercy but message. They would send them back to their Senate to carry a warning. "The humans live," the message would say, "and they remember. On Earth, lights shone across every city, every colony celebrated. But in the eyes of every commander, every pilot, there was no joy, only resolve, because they all knew the Empire would come again. Stronger, angrier, desperate for revenge." In the quiet of her ship, Captain Mira Solon watched the stars and whispered, "They thought we were weak, let's make sure they never think that again." Behind her, Erebus spoke in its low metallic tone. "New signal detected? Multiple Imperial reinforcements incoming." Mira turned, her smile sharp as a blade. "Good," she said. "Then the fire has just begun." The corridors of the Imperial Senate were filled with whispers. Panic hidden behind polished armor and jeweled robes. The Great Hall, once a symbol of power and control, now trembled with fear. For the first time in living memory, the Empire had been struck and struck hard. At the center of the hall stood the High Emperor's throne, carved from obsidian and gold. Behind it shimmered a massive display showing the wreckage of the fleet, the shattered remains of the sovereign light drifting cold among the stars. Senators gasped, others shouted in disbelief. "It must be false," one cried. "No lesser race could do this." Another slammed his fist on the table. "We are the Empire, we are eternal." But eternal things do not shake, and yet the Empire was shaking. A tall, silver-skinned alien named Lord Koresh, head of the War Council, stepped forward. His tone was sharp. "The humans were underestimated. They have technology we did not anticipate. Stealth systems, kinetic weaponry, and AI coordination that surpasses ours." His words were met with outrage. "Impossible!" shouted the nobles. "They were primitives." Koresh glared at them. "Primitives don't annihilate 10,000 Imperial ships in 1 hour." Silence followed. Thick and heavy, the Emperor rose slowly, his golden armor gleaming under the chamber lights. His face calm, but his voice edged with venom. "The Empire does not lose," he said. "The Empire crushes." He turned toward his generals. "Assemble the Grand Armada, 10 fleets, every dreadnought. Every carrier leave nothing behind, Earth will burn." The Senate erupted in applause. But beneath that noise lay something else, fear. They were not cheering victory. They were cheering to silence their terror. Outside the Senate Hall, shadows moved through the corridors. Intelligence officers, scientists and warlords whispering, gathering reports. Some of them spoke quietly of what they had seen. "The humans, they don't fight like us," one said. "They fight like they've already died once," another replied. "Their ships vanish, then reappear behind our lines. Their weapons tear through our shields like light through glass." Back on the Empire's military world of Valthor Prime, massive shipyards began roaring to life. Tens of thousands of workers toiled day and night, assembling fleets so large they darkened the skies. Yet even as engines ignited and weapons were loaded, unease spread among the soldiers. Rumors of Earth's ghost fleet passed from one barrack to another. Stories of black ships rising from shadows, of human voices whispering through comms before the kill. In the command citadel, General Thulek, brother of the late Admiral Varan, stood watching the fleet's formation. His eyes burned with vengeance. "They took my brother," he said coldly. "I will take their world." But in the shadows of that same world, a small group of Imperial scientists stared at intercepted human transmissions. "They are not rebuilding," one whispered. "They are expanding." The data showed human outposts appearing on moons, asteroids and distant systems all suddenly active. "They are preparing for something greater," the scientist said, fear creeping into his voice back in the Senate. Lord Koresh approached the Emperor again. "Your Majesty, we must reconsider," he said carefully. "If we attack recklessly, we may provoke a war beyond control." The Emperor's golden eyes narrowed. Beyond control, he hissed. We are control. He stepped closer, his voice low. If we show weakness now, the lesser species will rise. The galaxy obeys strength, and I will remind them who key commands the stars. Koresh bowed his head, but in his mind he knew the truth. This was not a war of dominance anymore. It was a war of survival, and the Empire was not ready for what was coming. Meanwhile, in the deep void between stars, humanity watched unseen from the hidden command ship HSS Revenant. Commander Elias Arlen observed intercepted Imperial broadcasts. His officers listened silently as the Empire promised vengeance. They're gathering everything, one of them said. All their power? Elias nodded, his voice calm. Good. It saves us the trouble of hunting them down one by one, across the fleet. Captains prepared their ships, engineers reinforced armor. AI networks shared strategies at speeds no biological mind could match. The humans knew the Empire was coming, but they weren't afraid. They were focused, ready, in orbit above Saturn. Captain Mira Solon stood on the observation deck of the HSS Vengeance, watching the gas giant swirl below. They'll send everything they have, she said quietly. And when they do, we'll answer with everything we are. Erebus responded in its deep metallic tone. Enemy armadas mobilizing in 5 sectors. Estimated arrival in 21 days. Mira's lips curved into a thin smile. Then we have 21 days to make hell. Back on Earth, the people didn't celebrate this time. There were no cheers, no lights, only determination. Children practiced evacuation drills. Engineers fortified orbital rings. AI cores connected across systems to create one vast network, the human net. A shared mind linking ships, weapons, and strategy. Humanity was no longer billions of individuals. It had become a single organism with one pulse, one purpose. The Empire thought they understood war. But war had changed. The humans didn't fight for glory or conquest. They fought for memory, for survival, for the promise that no one would ever harm them again. As the Imperial fleets launched from Valthor Prime, cutting through hyperspace toward Sol, a voice echoed across the human network. It was Commander Elias Arlen, steady and calm. They come with fire, he said. Let them. We'll show them what real fire looks like. And somewhere deep in space, 1,000 human ships powered up, their engines burning red like the eyes of an awakening storm. The Empire's arrogance had created the spark, but now that spark had become an inferno. And soon the galaxy would burn, the void trembled. Stars that had watched silently for eons now bore witness to the march of vengeance. The Empire's 10 mighty fleets surged through hyperspace, 10 rivers of light cutting across the black. Each fleet commanded by an admiral sworn to erase Earth from existence. Their ships numbered in the hundreds of thousands, engines glowing like miniature suns. The Empire believed this would be their final, glorious victory. They expected fear, surrender, silence. But what awaited them was none of those. In the dark between the stars, humanity waited unseen. 1,000 human ships floated cold and still, dreadnoughts, carriers, cruisers, and silent hunters hidden in the dust of forgotten systems. The HSS Vengeance led the spearhead, her hull black as the void itself. Captain Mira Solon stood before her crew, her voice steady and sharp. They come to end us, she said. Let them arrive. Let them believe their victory is near. And when they think they've won, show them why humans should never be underestimated. Her words spread across the human network, carried on encrypted channels that connected every ship, every soldier, every AI. It wasn't just an army anymore, it was one consciousness. United by fury from Mars to Neptune, old defense satellites blinked awake. Weapons buried beneath ice and rock powered up. Hidden fortresses under the moons of Jupiter unfolded like mechanical flowers. Human engineers had turned the solar system into a fortress of traps and fire. Then the void shook. The first Imperial fleet exited hyperspace near Pluto, their formation perfect, their arrogance even more so. Admiral Thulek, the Emperor's warlord and brother of the fallen Varan, stood at the bridge of his flagship Imperial Dawn. Scan the system, he ordered. Find their ships. Burn their worlds, but the scanners showed nothing, only cold silence and endless dark. Perhaps they fled again, his officer said. Thulek smiled cruelly. Then we'll destroy what's left. He never saw the danger. From the shadow of Pluto hidden within its frozen rings, hundreds of stealth mines activated. A hum filled the void, then came the explosion. Blue-white light consumed the lead ships, tearing them apart before a warning could even be sent. The shockwave rippled through the fleet, and in the chaos humanity struck from behind Neptune. Dreadnoughts emerged, massive and silent. Their engines flared red as they accelerated, launching storms of railgun rounds and plasma fire. The first Imperial formation was shredded in seconds. Their shields collapsed under relentless kinetic bombardment. Thulek's officers screamed for commands, but their systems were jammed. Human AIs had already infiltrated their communication grid, turning every message into chaos. Thulek roared, "Where are they coming from?" No one answered above the battlefield. KSS Vengeance broke through the shadows, its hull glowing like molten steel. Mira Solin's voice echoed across open channels. "You wanted war, Admiral. You wanted to test humanity. Now you face what you created." She gave a single command. Fire. Every ship obeyed. Missiles streaked across the void. Plasma storms erupted. Kinetic rounds ripped through hulls like paper. The Empire's fleet began to fall apart, ship by ship, formation by formation. Within an hour, the first fleet was gone, but there were 9 more behind it. They came screaming through hyperspace, desperate to join the battle. Their arrival tore open space itself, blue lightning flashing across the system. Yet as they appeared, they met a wall of human defense platforms, orbital cannons and automated AI swarms. From the asteroid belt, hidden weapon stations came online, launching billions of micro-drones armed with plasma lances. From Earth's upper orbit, the Titan-class ships emerged, massive constructs that blotted out the stars. They unleashed fusion beams powerful enough to melt cities from orbit. Cutting through Imperial lines like fire through silk, Admiral Thulek watched in disbelief. His fleet, his brother's revenge, was burning. The humans were everywhere. Inside their systems, under their sensors, beyond their imagination. "Retreat!" He shouted, "Retreat now!" But it was too late. From Jupiter's orbit, the final human ambush unfolded. Dozens of gravity mines activated, pulling Imperial ships off course and slamming them into one another. In seconds, the once glorious formation turned into chaos. Ships collided, reactors exploded, and the Empire's strength turned against itself. The battle raged for hours. The sky itself seemed to bleed fire. Every explosion painted the black in shades of blue and red. And when the light finally faded, there were no Imperial banners left. Only debris, wreckage, and silence across the command network. Humanity watched the victory unfold, but no one cheered. No one smiled. Commander Elias Arlen's voice came through the channel, calm and quiet. "Report status," Mira answered. "Primary fleets destroyed. Survivors minimal." Elias paused. "Good. Prepare for Phase 2. Captain Mira frowned slightly. "Phase 2? Elias's voice darkened. "The Empire will not stop. They'll send more, stronger. We can't just defend anymore. It's time we take the war to them." Around her, her crew turned their eyes to the stars beyond. For the first time, humanity was not fighting for survival. They were hunting. As the fleet recharged and the wreckage of the Empire's might drifted like ash through the solar winds, Mira Solin stood at the viewport of the Vengeance. Her reflection shimmered against the light of dying stars. "They wanted to see our fire," she whispered. "Now they'll see the inferno." The humans had not only survived, they had transformed from prey to predator, from victims to vengeance, and far away, deep within the Empire's throne world, the Emperor awoke to the impossible message flashing across his command feed. All 10 fleets destroyed, humanity advancing. For the first time in his reign, the Emperor felt something he had never known before. Fear. The galaxy had changed forever, and humanity had only just begun to rise. The fire had ended, but its smoke still drifted through the stars for days. The wreckage of the Imperial armadas floated silently in the void, twisted hulls glinting under the light of distant suns. The once invincible Empire had lost 10 fleets in a single campaign, and the galaxy trembled. On Earth, the night sky shimmered with the faint trails of returning ships. Humanity had won, but they did not celebrate. The people of Earth, Mars, Luna, and every colony watched the battle feeds in silence. They saw what they had done, what they had become, and they understood. There would be no peace, not yet. In the command chamber of Luna Base, Commander Elias Arlen stood before a hollow map, showing the spiral arms of the galaxy, glowing red with Imperial territory. Around him, admirals and AIs waited. "Silent as statues, they will regroup," Elias said, his voice calm but iron-hard. "They will rebuild, and they will come again." He paused, his gaze steady. That's why we won't wait. At his order, Operation Dawnfire began. The human fleet spread across the void, organized. Ruthless, efficient, they moved like a storm, striking one world after another, not for conquest, but for dismantling. Every Imperial garrison was dismantled, every supply chain broken, every slave world freed, and every world that raised the Imperial crest was burned clean. Captain Mira Solon and the HSS Vengeance led the charge. Her fleet descended upon the border world of Kareth Prime. The planet's sky darkened as human warships eclipsed its twin suns. The Imperial defenders tried to fight, but their own people turned against them. Cities erupted in rebellion as humans broadcast one message across the planet's networks. This is for Mars. Orbital bombardments rained down. Precise and merciless, Imperial fortresses crumbled under tungsten strikes. Mira watched from her bridge, her eyes cold. "End it quickly," she said. "No more suffering." Across the stars, humanity moved like a tide. Unstoppable AI fleets known as Echo Swarms operated without rest, hunting down retreating Imperial convoys. Human marines landed on forgotten colonies, liberating worlds that had been under the Empire's rule for centuries. In the ruins of those worlds, alien refugees stared at the human soldiers in awe and fear. "You came for vengeance," one elder said quietly. "But you brought freedom," a soldier replied. "We bring both." In the Imperial capital, panic consumed the Senate. Entire sectors had gone dark. Trade routes vanished, fleets never returned. Lord Koresh entered the Emperor's war chamber with grim eyes. "Your Majesty, their fleets are advancing through our outer rings. Entire sectors have fallen." The Emperor rose from his throne, fury masking terror. "Then burn their path, turn every world they pass into ash." But even as he shouted, reports flooded in, worlds self-destructing, ships refusing orders, systems falling silent. Humanity had hacked into the Empire's war grid. Their AIs had infected Imperial data cores, turning their own command system against them. Whole fleets drifted lifeless, their controls locked by unseen hands. On the Vengeance, Captain Mira stood beside Erebus, the AI's core glowing faint blue. "Imperial networks collapsing," it said. "Probability of counterattack now below 7%. Mira exhaled slowly. "No, they'll still try something desperate. They always do," and she was right. At the edge of the Imperial core, the last Grand Fleet assembled under General Thulek. Desperate, broken, but still proud, he broadcast across all channels, his voice cracking with rage. "Humans, you think you've won, but you're still mortal. You will bleed like we bled." Mira's reply came seconds later, soft, almost sorrowful. "You still don't understand," she said. "We already bled. That's why we're unstoppable." The two fleets met above the dying star of Kalis Prime. The battle that followed would be remembered as the Reckoning. Human ships surrounded the Imperial formation, moving with precision born of shared purpose. Every shot from the Empire was answered by 10 from humanity. Every maneuver predicted before it was made. The AI network, now vast and alive, fought beside them, not as servants, but as allies. Hours passed one by one. The Imperial ships fell. The last dreadnought cracked apart, scattering into glowing fragments, and at its heart, Thulek's command ship exploded in silence, its light fading into the black. When the battle ended, the human fleet did not cheer. There were no songs, no speeches, only quiet breathing over comms. Commander Elias's voice filled the channel, calm as always. "It's over," he said. "The Empire's throne is next." In the distant capital, the Emperor stood alone in his great hall, watching the stars through his crystal windows. For the first time, those stars seemed smaller behind him. His aides whispered of surrender, of negotiation, but he could not speak. His empire, built on arrogance, was gone and far away. In the light of the human fleet, Mira Solon watched the star maps glow with victory markers. "It's not revenge anymore," she said softly. "It's justice," Erebus answered. "Justice achieved through fire." Mira nodded. "Then let the fire cleanse the galaxy." The human fleet turned toward the heart of the Empire. The march had begun, not for destruction, but for judgment. And as they moved through the ashes of broken worlds, the galaxy whispered a new truth. Humanity was no longer the hunted, humanity was the reckoning. The war was over. The galaxy that once trembled beneath the banner of the Empire now floated in quiet ruin. The stars burned softly again, but the silence was different. It was not the peace of control. It was the peace of exhaustion, of survival from orbit. The imperial capital world of Violian looked scarred and pale. Its once glittering cities now shadows of their former pride. Towers broken, fleets grounded. The Emperor's palace nothing but a husk of shattered glass. The last echo of arrogance had fallen. The HSS Vengeance hovered above the world like a dark guardian, scarred from countless battles but still alive inside. Captain Mira Solon stood before the main viewport. Her reflection caught between the fading light of Velian and the soft hum of her ship. Her voice was low, tired. "We could burn it completely," she said. "End it here," Erebus answered in its calm, metallic tone. "You already ended it, Captain. They have nothing left to destroy." Commander Elias Arlen's face appeared on the holoscreen, his eyes lined with weariness but clear with purpose. "Mira," he said, "stand down. The fleets are to hold position. Humanity does not conquer. We rebuild." She hesitated for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Understood. Commander." The order spread through every ship. Every dreadnought dimmed its weapons, every carrier powered down. The great human war machine that had turned the galaxy into flame now drifted in silence, like embers waiting for the wind to fade below them. Imperial survivors gathered in ruined plazas, soldiers, civilians, slaves. Every kind of life that had once bowed to the throne now stared upward at the black silhouettes that filled their skies. They waited for the fire to fall again, but it didn't instead. From the human fleet descended smaller ships, relief vessels, med barges, supply transports. The galaxy watched in disbelief as the destroyers became healers. Where the Empire had ruled through fear, humanity rebuilt through will. Days passed, then weeks. Human engineers walked the streets of alien cities, repairing power grids, rebuilding hospitals, sharing food with those who once called them savages, in the halls of the fallen Senate. Lord Koresh stood before Mira and Elias, his head bowed. "We thought you were monsters," he said softly. "But you're more human than we ever were." Elias replied quietly. "Monsters don't rebuild what they destroy." News of the Empire's fall spread to every corner of the galaxy. Worlds long enslaved raised their own banners, not of war, but of freedom. And at the center of it all stood the emblem of Sol, 3 concentric circles glowing white, symbolizing unity, life, and memory. Years later, the Vengeance still patrolled the stars, not as a weapon of fear, but as a protector of peace. Captain Mira Solon remained aboard, her hair now streaked with silver. She often stood before the same window, watching the stars that once burned red with war. Erebus spoke one evening. "The galaxy is quiet, Captain. The Senate of Free Worlds meets tomorrow. Humanity has been offered the central chair." Mira smiled faintly. "We never wanted a throne, only a voice. Far beyond the rebuilt worlds, on the plains of Mars, a memorial stretched beneath the red sky, thousands of names etched into black stone. The wind whispered through the carvings, carrying the words of an old broadcast, the message that had begun it all. Retaliate. Children came to that place, their teachers telling them how one act of arrogance woke the fire of a forgotten world, how the smallest species became the strongest not by domination, but by unity, by choice, by pain turned into strength. In time, the story became legend, told by alien tongues in markets and meeting halls. They spoke of a world that slept, was struck and woke as a storm, a world that fought not to rule, but to remind the galaxy that freedom was worth every scar. On the edge of the Milky Way, an explorer ship discovered an ancient human marker floating alone in the dark, carved with words older than the Empire. "We came from a small world of oceans and storms. We endured, we learned, we remembered, and when the stars tested us, we answered, with fire." The explorer recorded the message and sent it across the new galactic network. And somewhere in the depths of the void, as light touched the hulls of 1,000 ships bearing the Sol emblem, it was said that the stars themselves flickered, almost like they bowed, because the galaxy had learned its greatest truth. You can destroy a planet, but never the spirit of humanity, for even in ashes they burn, and from that fire they build a new dawn,